that broadcasts live across all platforms: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and everything live. And this is a Q&A session. So we'll see how this goes. We'll give it a shot. So if you're just tuning in, one of my favorite things is to ask where you're tuning in from. So if you are tuning in from anywhere right now, on Facebook or YouTube or anyone else, let me know you're here and where you're tuning in from. And we'll get this ball rolling today on the Ask Coach Lyle show. Next week, I'm excited. I'm going to have a guest, CJ Beatty, the baseball and softball motivator. Pretty excited to have him on. So get your questions ready to go, and we'll fire away today. So any questions you have at all, parenting, coaching, recruiting, hitting, you name it, we're going to do it today. So again, thanks everyone for tuning in all over the country, all over the world. We've got Brianna from Colorado. We've got Davey in Oklahoma, and a lot of others from all over the world today. So again, bear with me as I learn this new system that I'm playing with today. But Adam's tuning in from Australia. That's awesome. Tommy from Colorado. Scott's in New Zealand. Eugene's in Bakersfield. So a lot of people tuning in today. That's awesome. Thanks so much, everybody. Brian's in St. Louis. Michael's in Ohio. So get your questions ready. Let's get rocking this afternoon. Coaching, parenting, baseball, softball, you name it. Let's tackle it today and fire away with some questions. So let's see what everybody has this morning. Wow, more people tuning in from Costa Rica, Fort Worth, Texas, North Carolina. Awesome to see everybody this afternoon. I appreciate you tuning in. I'm having my second cup of coffee. Clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose. All right, so let's get into these questions today. We've got people from Melbourne, Hawaii, Mississippi. Awesome. So the first question that we're going to ask today is, what do you say to an athlete that recently has shoulder surgery and is having a hard time adjusting to watching from the sidelines? My best advice to an athlete that's coming back from injury and they can't really play yet is find a way to get really involved. Be a good teammate. Be a good leader. Ask the coach how you can help the coach out in any way possible. That would be the biggest thing that I would do, is find ways to contribute to the team. And find ways to train on the other shoulder and other ways that the doctor allows you to do. But find ways to be valuable to your teammates. Be a great teammate. That's what I would really do to pump them up and to really help them. Again, thanks everybody for tuning in. Melissa's in Chicago. Brad's in Montreal, Canada. We've got some people from Indiana, Hawaii, you name it. We've got it. So I'm going to try to get to as many questions as I can today in this half hour. So right now, the first question is Michael Haig asks, win reality, like it or love it. If you're a baseball, softball person and you like, sometimes I get asked the questions a lot about training for vision training. Win reality is a Quest 2 Oculus headset vision training program. Highly recommend it. Big fan. And so I like it and I love it, Michael. So great question there. Dina's tuning in from Memphis, Tennessee, and Tina from Detroit. JT in my favorite town in America, San Diego. Oliver's tuning in from Michigan. Gregory's in France. That's awesome. So the next question I have is from. Gotta figure out this this little thing right here. From Matthew Hall, he says, when you're working with high school kids hitting, what metrics would you say are the best to look at, and where those values should be? We recently got Diamond Connects for our team, and I was just wondering what metrics you think are most important with the values you see for those metrics: launch angle, exit velocity, approach angle, etc. At the high school level, I would say the biggest thing is exit velocity. You won't get that from a bat sensor, but from a pocket radar or a radar gun. Exit velocity, probably number one. Bat speed is another big one that you will get off that Diamond Kinetic sensor. Approach angle would probably be a close third place behind those two. There are a lot of other metrics that I think are really important, but to me, those are the biggest three that I would focus on. Someone asked, how long do you typically see a habit of sliding hands to the ball work itself out of a hitter's system? Weeks, months, years? Here's what I'll tell you. In my experience of working with hitters, it really just depends on the athlete. I have Major League Baseball players that I've worked with for 5 years right now, and we're still working on the same things to a degree and kind of fine tuning those things. And sometimes hitters, within an hour, they pick it up. So it really depends on the athlete. I know it's not a super helpful athlete thing, but I hear you. Jose asks, how do you tackle insecurity in an athlete? Anytime it comes to insecurities or confidence issues with an athlete, the biggest thing that I'm always going to talk about is parents giving their kids permission to fail and instilling that confidence in them that no matter how they do, no matter how much they fail, their parents love them no matter what. If you go 0 for 4 at the plate with 4 strikeouts, you still love them and you're still going to take them to ice cream after the game. So to me, parents just instilling love and confidence in their kids and letting them know they have permission to fail, to me, is one of the biggest things to tackle insecurity. Okay. Mike asks, how do you keep a kid motivated that just got cut from a high school team due to numbers, not talent? I would say a couple things. Number one, he did get cut for talent a little bit, okay? And you might not have to. I would talk to him about that to a degree. Like, hey, even though there was a lot of people trying out, like, it's still a talent issue. So, how bad do you want to make the team next year? Are you willing to put the work in to get better to do that? And then again, I would talk about and tell stories about. There's so many athletes, you can Google them, that were cut from teams, didn't make it to this level or didn't make it to that level, and still went on to be superstars. And so, I would just encourage him that's not the end of the road of his journey, unless he wants it to be. And you can get defeated, you can let it beat you, but or you can let it to motivate you. So I would find ways to try to motivate them. Brenda is tuning in for New Jersey. Again, if you're just tuning in, let me know you're here. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Today we've got people from New Zealand, Australia, France, Costa Rica, Canada. We've hit a lot of countries today, a lot of states. Joe's tuning in from Philly. Jamie's in Australia. That's awesome. TJ asks, if you have a perfectionist that is too hard on themselves on every little mistake, take a strike, make an error, strike out, in inning, and so on. TJ, I would give you the same answer I gave to somebody a couple of questions ago. For those perfectionist kids, I'm going to have a lot of talks with them regarding failure and understanding in sports there is a lot of failure. I used to give an analogy that I stole from a friend of mine named Jimmy Kalidas, hitting coach at Arizona State now. He used to always ask kids, when it comes to your grades, you want a 90% or better for an A. If you're gonna go get knee surgery done, you want to go to a doctor that has a 99.99 success rate. But when it comes to softball and baseball and hitting, for example, a 30% to 40% success rate could be Hall of Fame, All-American. So getting perspective around failure for perfectionists is probably the best way to do it. And again, reinforcing that you love them no matter what. Even when they fail, you still love them. And you're going to hear me say that sometimes in these Ask Coach Lyle shows. And I say it because I talk to so many student athletes who tell me that they feel like their parents' love is predicated on performance a lot. And if they perform really well or they have a good game, their parents treat them better. And if they have a bad game, their parents treat them poorly. Even if you don't think you're that parent, I can tell you there's a lot of them out there that believe that. So let's keep doing that. Chris is tuning in from Virginia. Jarrett from Colorado. Eugene asks, what hitting movement drills or warm-up exercises to start a hitting program? For me, we do a lot of what we call PVC pipe drills to warm up, and I won't go into it today because we have just so many questions and not enough time, Eugene. If you're a member of the Hitting Vault, all those drills will be in there this summer, and I'm pretty excited about all the warm-up drills you put in there. But for the most part, when I'm with our team and we're doing pregame, the warm-up is hitting off a tee, getting our bodies loose, hitting off front toss in the machine or live or whatever it is that hitter needs to do to get ready for the game. And sometimes I have hitters that need 50 to 75 swings before they get warm, sometimes more. And sometimes you get hitters that 10 to 15 swings, they're warm and ready to go. So everybody's different in how they warm up, but we do a kind of a progression between PVC pipe drills, movement drills, tee work, front toss, and some type of live or machine work, okay? Ben asks, my daughter is a cage beast, hits balls well off front toss, even at close distances, but struggles to hit pitches above 52 miles an hour. Have tried 3-plate drill to help just because it doesn't help with the girl throwing in the circle. Got any other drills to work? How can I help her? So the 3-plate drill would probably be one of the things I would say, Ben, but honestly, I would just say, I would not let her see any pitches below 52 miles an hour in practice. I would make sure from a reaction standpoint and everything else, if that's where the wall is, I'm going to feed her from machine to pitching to front toss. I'm going to try to create above 52 miles an hour and live pitching as much as possible. I would say to you, in practice, as much as you can, try to incorporate live pitching above 52 miles an hour. Really attack that thing and having some conversations with her in regards to when she starts her swing. You'd be shocked at how many major league players and college players that I talk to, and I ask them, when do you start your swing? When do you start your load? And a lot of them either don't know the answer or they don't change it based on the pitcher. If a softball pitcher is throwing 70 miles an hour and a softball pitcher is throwing 50 miles an hour, you can't have the same starting time. Okay, it just doesn't work that way. So you've got to adjust to that. And so I would talk to her a little bit about that. Tommy asks, how do you work with hitters to have an approach for each at bat? It really depends on the level. I'll tell you what, if I'm coaching 6 to 10-year-olds, most of the approach is going to be aggressive, swing hard, have intent, swing out of your shoes. And it's going to be really about having fun, having intent, being aggressive. At the college level, we're talking a lot about plate discipline, knowing what pitches you barrel up and focusing on those pitches, changing it a little bit with 2 strikes. So it really depends on the age level. But for me, especially at the younger levels, the approach that we're going to talk about is being aggressive and taking hacks. And we can always dial down approach. You know, if you got a kid that swings at pitches over her head every time, again, like we'll start talking about, you know, what's the cause of that if they're too aggressive. But a lot of times we get a lot of kids that are too passive at the younger levels. At the college level, again, we don't have that issue as much. And so I would say higher level kids, we're talking more about plate discipline, making good decisions. But the younger levels, I want them to take some hacks and be aggressive, to have some intent. So Billy asks, how much do coaches look at parents' behavior now at games? I would tell you as a college coach, we definitely do. I can tell you right now, if you are a problem parent in the stands, and I'm a college coach sitting in those stands, your kid better be one of the best players out there. If it's like your kid's on the list, but I'm not fully sold on them, and a parent is a nightmare in the stands, that kid's off the list. Because I know that when I make a commitment to your son or daughter from a recruiting standpoint, that's a 4-year commitment. And I'm going to be with that person a lot. So I'm making a commitment to the parents to a degree as well. So I don't want to make a commitment to a parent for 4 years if they're going to be a nightmare parent. So I would say it matters a lot. Unless your kid is a 5-star recruit and the coach doesn't care and they're like, you know what? I'll deal with this nightmare parent because the kid is so good and stuff like that. And you're going to see that too. Okay, let's be really honest about that. Billy's tuning in from St. Louis. Lindsay, right where I'm at, Northern California. Sade's in Mississippi. Matthew's in rainy and wet Arizona. Josh is in Chowchilla. We got so many people across the country and across the world tuning in today. So that's awesome. Let's see. Michael asks, what's your best advice to parents thinking of coaching teams, and how should they avoid the temptation of daddy ball? It's rampant nowadays, unlike when I coached 43 years ago. So my dad coached me from 5 years old to 15 years old, and I would tell you, it was the opposite of daddy ball for me. My dad was so hard on me, and I didn't. He was harder on me than any other kid. Every other kid he was super nice to and easygoing. My dad was tough. So I would just say my best advice to parents thinking about getting into coaching is is have assistant coaches that can do a good job with your kid. Sometimes there's some boundaries there that can be really good. And sometimes it's just really talking with your kid or just even yourself saying, hey, during practice, I'm in dad mode and I'm going to try to separate that. And it is hard for people. It's hard to separate that. Sometimes we go on one spectrum, we're too easy on our kids and they're playing shortstop and batting third in every game. And on the other side, they're too hard on them and they're really mean. Finding that happy place, finding that happy medium can be difficult, but it's really important. There's a lot of resources out there, from Proactive Coaching website to Positive Coaching Alliance. There's lots of stuff out there for parents to get trained on how to do a good job with coaching and coaching their kids. Okay. Jim asks, how does a player deal with different coaching? The high school coach teaches something one way while the travel coach teaches a different way. This is pretty common across the country and something I've dealt with a lot as a high school coach. And even as a college coach, and even as a pro coach, I've dealt with parents that teach something different and having conversations with it or so. The best way to do it is to communicate, okay? And if the high school coach teaches something that you really disagree with, you don't think is helping your hitter, there might be a conversation that needs to happen there. I always tell kids, do your best to smile and nod and do what the coach is asking you to do. But if you know deep down in your heart, like, hey, this is the way that I'm, my travel coach or my hitting coach does it, and I like it that way, trying to play that balance of that. Here's what I will tell you, Jim. In my experience, if your kid is hitting really, really well, they're not going to get messed with when it comes to their swing. So I used to tell kids, hey, you have a hitting coach or a pitching coach that you go to, that's great. Let's communicate with that person. I want to know what you're working on. But if you're really struggling, you're not doing well, then we're going to have a conversation about trying to do it my way. And again, communication is key. It's really important to do that. So that would be the biggest thing that I would say, is making sure to do that. Anna asks, how do you motivate a player that has talent but struggling with academics? For me, the biggest thing when it comes to that, because that was me, I'll tell you, I'm very fortunate. My almost 17-year-old son, 4.0 student in AP chemistry and history. He's a great student. I was not that way. I skated by and still had, 3.0 some semesters, a 2.5, sometimes a 3.5. So I understand the motivation, because I just wanted to play athletes. I just wanted to chase girls. That's how I was in high school. I didn't want to do academics. So the biggest thing that I would say, Anna, is when it comes to a player kind of like that, is the motivation has to be, hey, what are your goals? Do you want to play in college? And just understand that nowadays in 2021, the competition is so tough to move on to the next level, and academics is such a huge part of it. It depends on how much money you can get. It opens the doors to more schools. There are so many schools that have requirements, high requirements in regards to academics. So to me, it would be talking to them about their goals. What do you want to do? You want to play in college? Well, if you want to play in college, just know that, and I tell kids this all the time, if we have two athletes of equal talent, all things are equal, and this kid has a 2.5 and this kid has a 3.5, I'm going to take the 3.5. Not just because they have good grades, but because it proves to me that they're going to work hard in the classroom and they're hard workers and they can be disciplined. Because at the college level, academics is way harder than high school, especially when you're practicing 20, 30 hours a week and playing games, plus a full school load, plus all the other activities you have going on. It's way harder at the college level. So if you can't handle getting good grades in high school, there's no way you can handle getting good grades in college. So you need to start working on it right away. Okay. Duncan tuning in from the Jersey Shore. Ken's in Burlington, Wisconsin. Let's see here. Josh says, YouTube PVC pipe hitting. Jim Thome and Chipper Jones did it their entire career, and they're Hall of Famers. Very true. I do love some good PVC pipe work. Chris is tuning in from Texas. Anna from Texas as well. Randy says, is 8U too early for travel ball? For me, it's really about the kids. It's really about the community. I would love for every kid in America to play in their community until they were in high school. That's what I would love. I would love neighborhood kids and to play Little League and ball. But I understand why parents do travel ball. I can tell you, I have a 9-year-old and I have a 7-year-old, and sometimes you get dad coaches or mom coaches who don't know anything about the sport. They're just volunteering. They're in over their heads, and they just don't have a great experience or great coaching. And the kids around them sometimes you've got a team that half of them care, half of them don't care. So to me, the allure of travel ball is dependent on your kid. Does your kid need that a little bit more organization, a little bit more coaching, a little bit more of that? If that's the case at 8 years old, then I say yes. But I would say try as long as you can, depending on your community, to stay in a community program with community coaches. I think there's so much value to that. But I understand the draw to travel ball. I would just say my best advice to it, especially for an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old or 12-year-old, would be to make sure it's motivated by them and not motivated by the parents. Just because you don't like the coaches or you don't think the program is good, that's not a good reason to go to travel ball. A good reason to travel ball is if you have a kid who really, you can see they really love the sport. They want to put the time in. They want to develop. That's the kid that I would do it. So we've got 8 minutes left on the shot clock for the Ask Coach Lyle show today, and I've got probably another 50 questions, so I'm going to try to get to these as much as I can. If you're just tuning in, this is the Ask Coach Lyle show every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm going to answer your guys' questions about parenting, coaching, hitting, recruiting, you name it. I'm going to try to answer it the best I can, as fast as I can. We are broadcasting live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and some other places as well. So get your questions in, and I will do my best I can to answer them for you. All right. Sean says, although I'm a soccer coach, thank you for the positive, inspirational quotes. I share them with my players and parents. Thanks, Sean. I appreciate the kind words, and I appreciate you doing that. Frank says, is 11 years old too old to start strength and conditioning with softball? Daughter is pitcher and trying to build arm strength. I think you mean too young, Frank. And I would say no. I wouldn't be having them work on, power cleans and deadlifts and crazy things, but it's a great time to start working on core strength and push-ups and body weight and learning some technique around strength and conditioning, especially speed work. So conditioning work, I highly recommend it for 11-year-olds. I mean, think about back in the day, our kids, at least when I was a kid, you went out in the cul-de-sac and you played football, wiffle ball, baseball, roller hockey for 3-4 hours every day. And we had PE every day, and recess we did stuff. Kids nowadays, especially with COVID, are not getting their bodies moving as much. So I'm all for strength and conditioning for 11-year-olds. So give it a try. Jonathan asks, I work with youth baseball kids, 5th grade at the moment. Do you have experience with kids that have some anger issues and get so frustrated and mad it messes with their game? I'm wondering if there's anything I can do besides sitting them down and giving them a positive pep talk. Is there things you've seen work? So, Jonathan, I have experience with that, and I have experience with that as a parent. That sounds like all of my kids and my siblings. I'm the oldest of 7 kids. 6 of us played in the college level, so that sounds like my family to a T. If I was coaching a basketball team of 5th graders and I had that kid with the anger issues, I would tell them, hey, just, it's twofold. One, when they do that, they're going to have to take a break. They got to sit on the bench. They got to sit out. There's going to be some type of feeling of having to sit out, kind of like the old timeout system. You got to have that. On the other hand, you've got to do really good positive reinforcement, positive pep talk. When they do a good job and show their behavior, talk to them about their parents. And maybe it's something that you create a star system. What I would do if I were you is get some basketball cards, even some old cheap ones. Cost you $1, and at the end of practice, give out basketball cards of good effort and good attitude. Try to create this culture where kids want to, be good, and you're going to give them rewards for that. You got to figure out what's going to motivate that kid not to lose their temper and have anger issues. Sometimes it might be sitting on the bench for a while. It might be, again, like the basketball card idea, something like that. Stickers, find something fun for them. Popsicles, ice cream day. Something like that. Let's see. The next question comes from Aubrey. Aubrey says, Coach, what are your best tips for building a program from ground zero? environment and keeping them excited about the sport versus learning the game and fundamentals, most important. Aubrey, the first thing I would do if I were you is I would go to proactivecoaching.info and I would buy every workbook and everything that they sell on there. And that will change your life, for one. Everybody else listening to this, if you coach a team, I can't tell you enough. My mentor, Bruce Brown, who heads Proactive Coaching, has changed my life. Proactive Coaching has changed my life as a coach. I recommend to anybody. And so what I would do is, Aubrey, is I would sit down with the leaders on your team, identify who they are, get together. Maybe they get together for lunch or ice cream and say, hey guys, I've identified that you are the 3 or 4 leaders on this team, and I want to teach you how to be good leaders. This is what I want to create. I want to create this good culture where we love the game. And I would start with them and start talking about like what's important to them, trying to create some core covenants for the team that they care about. And finding ways to keep accountability with that. So it's a tough answer, but I would start with identifying who the leaders are, pouring into them a little bit, and trying to bring people into the circle of culture. So that would be my best advice where to start. Okay, Jamie asks, what age group really are colleges looking at? I had someone tell me we have to get them ready to be seen in 12U. I have a hard time believing this. But then again, we are ranking 7th graders nationally. I want to be very clear with my expectations, my team, and my parents. I want to be able to plan tournaments, develop progress. So first of all, I want to give a plug. One of my biggest projects that I'm working on right now is called recruitedinsider.com. Recruitedinsider.com. Everyone go check it out today. It is my website. It's a course I put together that is the truth about recruiting, answers questions like this. So go check it out. But Jamie, my answer to you is, for the most part, it's freshman, sophomore year. Coaches are starting to gather information, and then sophomore, junior years when things are really starting to happen, depending on the sport. In softball, they passed a rule that coaches cannot even talk to kids about recruiting until fall of their junior year. So junior year is really when it should be happening, but we all know and hear stories like you're talking about 12U. If you hear about kids who are getting recruited at 12U to 14U, these kids are the top 1% of the 1%. And that does happen, but don't listen to those stories. What I would do is, if I was a parent, is I would start learning about recruiting in junior high, and so that I can hit the ground running in the recruiting process as a freshman. And then as a sophomore, it kind of just starts escalating from there. But 12U, no chance it's happening, or it shouldn't be. Whether we're ranking kids or not, I'm telling you that college coaches, which is my people, my community, my friends that I talk to every day, they're not at 12U games anymore. They used to be, and coaches have done a good job. The NCAA has done a good job of curbing that to a degree. But I would say 14U, 16U, much more. Don't spend a ton of money going around the country on a 12U teams. There's not going to be college coaches there, especially right now because of everything going on. Okay. If you're just tuning in, I'm gonna go an extra 5 minutes. Okay, we're running out of time, but I'll go an extra 5 minutes here. If you're just tuning in, it's the Ask Coach Lyle show. You can ask me anything you want about recruiting, hitting, coaching, parenting. And if you're just tuning in, hey, let me know where you're tuning in from. We've got people from New Zealand, Australia, Costa Rica, New Jersey, you name it, across the country and the world tuning in today. That's awesome, and I appreciate that. Frank's tuning in from New Jersey. We got Aubrey tuning in from Utah. Brad's in Maryland. I lived near Mechanicsville. I lived in Bowie, Maryland for a little while. So Chris is in New Jersey. Brandon's in Pennsylvania. So it's awesome to see everybody in here. Let's see. A couple more questions, okay? Levi asks, I recently pulled my 12-year-old son out of travel ball due to his grades and attitude. He's talented, but trying to help him realize that playing is a privilege and not a right. Any thoughts or advice on how to help him with his focus to get back on track, take baseball away completely, even recreation ball? Levi, I would tell you my best advice. I have a 17-year-old son, a 9-year-old son, and I have a 3-year-old son. If he was my son, I would sit down with him and say, "Hey, buddy, and identify the attitude and grade things where these are things that if you want to go on to play in college, you want to go on, you got to have good attitude, you got to have good effort, you got to have good grades, and that's the expectation I have for you as a dad. And then I would try to find out what motivates him. My 9-year-old, if I was to take away Fortnite and video games, that would motivate him way more than taking away baseball. So, figure out for your son what would be the thing that would motivate him a little bit. But I would just talk to him a little bit. Hey, buddy, what are your goals? And I'll tell you what, if it is all about baseball, like for me, my sophomore year, I played 5 years. I played 5 sports in high school. I lettered in 5 sports: track, baseball, football, basketball, and no, football, basketball, baseball, track, whatever it was. And basketball, my sophomore year, we made the playoffs. I made varsity playoff run. So excited. My GPA was 1.83, and I didn't get to go to the playoff basketball game, and I was devastated. And that was enough for me. I got a 3.5 GPA the next year, and never messed around with my grades ever again. So that it might be the motivator for him, Levi. I would figure out what it is, sit down and talk to him, and just say, hey, buddy, here's some rules, here's some guidelines we're going to have, and if I see the attitude improving and I see the grades improving, you can have X, Y, and Z back. And it's a battle. Good luck with all of that. Jessica's tuning in from Lincoln, Nebraska. Russell asks, what's going on with the modern baseball swing? People deny and get mad when they hear about launch angle, but Christian Yelich clearly changed something. It's such a long answer. I'll give you the best I can, Russell. Here's what you need to know. Slugging percentage and on-base percentage are the biggest correlators to runs. And for a lot of major league players, it's the biggest correlator to the salary. So hitting for power and for extra base hits and doing it as often as possible can get you paid a little bit more because it does produce more runs. And I think just because of technology, like a lot of hitters are learning line drives are better than ground balls, right? We know this. So, and we have ways to measure it and quantify it, to measure it against athletes. And Major League Baseball teams know the same thing. If I am a Major League Baseball team and I'm trying to sign a free agent and some of their data points to not being very productive from a run standpoint, I might not sign that player, or I might not give him as much money. So it has to do with money, has to do with value, has to do with a lot of things. But I like the changes. I think there needs to be other changes involved in baseball to fix some things like the shift and stuff. But that's for a talk for another day. All right, I'll answer one more question today. Chris asks, what are your thoughts on recruiting companies? Do college coaches put a lot of stock into these companies, or is money better spent on more camps? So here's what I'll tell you, Chris. Like I said, I plugged it already, and I apologize for plugging it again, but go check out my site, recruitedinsider.com. It is a course that teaches parents all about the recruiting process without spending thousands of dollars on a recruiting site. I can tell you I've coached at every level: NAIA, D3, D2, D1, Pac-12, SEC. Recruiting companies, I would say 75% of them, I would never spend the money that you do. There are some really good people out there that do a good job with it. And I know there's some people out there, Mike Smith, former head softball coach at Ole Miss. I know he does a good job with NSR and some other people. But if I was a parent, if you have $3,000 to burn, go for a recruiting site and do that. I would tell you most college coaches, when they get emails from recruiting sites, they hit delete before they even read them, because they know that they're not really getting the best athletes. Now, sometimes college coaches have good relationships with these recruiting sites and people, and that's a whole different thing. A friend of mine, Darren Nicholson, is in Southern California. He does a lot of recruiting for baseball. He's really well connected in baseball. So when you hire him for recruiting, because he's so well connected in relationships, he places a lot of kids in college. But a lot of the big brand recruiting companies and sites, you pay the $3,000 and you get kind of thrown into the machine. I don't really recommend that because again, as a college coach, I don't see a lot of value into that. So there are so many more questions on here I couldn't get to today, but I appreciate everybody tuning in. If I didn't get to your question, tune in next week, next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to have a special guest, CJ Beatty, better known as the baseball motivator and the softball motivator. Him and I are going to do this show together next week, and that'll be great. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hopefully you got some value out of the Ask Coach Lyle show, and I will see you next week next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks, everybody.